yet again, another set of brakes that should have been done a while ago on this episode. As you can see, in typical drum brake fashion, the brakes have worn more at the pressure point, which is, here's where you're going to get the most pressure on the brake shoe, because you got the cylinder pushing out right there, separating them. But yeah, these are what I've been stopping on for a while, and while they're not completely gone, I have seen much, much worse. Got things like broken springs and just general wear and tear from age. I do have new hardware kits, I just don't have new parking brake cables, unfortunately. Shit, there we go. These adjuster cables, I don't have new ones of those, but I have all the new springs and all that stuff for rebuilding these, and new shoes, and I even went so far as to buy and paint a new set of brake drums. Yes, I painted those. Not, glamorous, but, I could have done worse. But I figured, with the scale build up on this one, they're starting to look like pot metal when it separates. I figured it was about time that I replace them. Also, wasn't sure about their condition, considering starting to get grooves in the shoes and things. And this is actually supposed to say, as this one does, max diameter 10.06, means just over half an inch, or just over 5/10 of an inch, or whatever. Half of a tenth of an inch. There we go. And this one is completely illegible. It's just rusted so badly you can't even see that anymore. So these new drums, even with the paint on it, should cool better, should stop better. I did paint the inside of the brake hat as well, but I did not paint the braking surface. So hopefully these won't corrode onto the mating surface for a good number of years, and the tire won't stick to them right away. But we'll have to see. I mean, this paint has only been curing for about a day, and it's been colder than the recommended curing temperature the entire time, so we'll have to see. But yeah, from this and this to this, and some new shoes when I get them thrown on. I guess I'll update it after I get everything swapped. Well, there we are. Shoes are off, old hardware's out, new hardware's almost ready to throw in. That's the cable that I won't be replacing, but everything else except for that piece of steel right there will be. This piece right here, I think I don't have another piece of this, and then this tin guide for the cable. All that has to be reused, and the adjuster obviously, but I even have a replacement rubber plug. But I will give props to Chrysler on this vehicle for one thing that has driven me nuts about drum brakes since I first did my first brake job on my 87 LeSabre that was my first car, was an 87 Buick LeSabre Custom. But that is how these attach to the brake shoes. Slips through and then it just pushes on it. Instead of that stupid pin through the caliper with an E-clip on it that Chevy likes to do. I fucking hate that clip. That clip has been the bane of every brake job I've done on a Chevy since I started doing brake jobs. Thank you, Chrysler. Good on you for not doing that on this truck. Well, there it is, back together. This little C-clip here isn't actually shown in the diagram that I have for the brakes. Yes, I did buy the book just in case. Not for this, but for pretty much the entire truck. But this little clip is not shown anywhere, and that's the only place I can figure that it fits, so that's where it went. Also, this shoe-to-shoe spring back here says it goes down in these big holes down here. The ones in this, you got the upper hole, the middle hole, and the bottom hole. It says it goes in the middle hole. But the hook on this side isn't going to catch in that. There isn't a chance in hell it's going to catch in that. So I don't think it actually goes down there. I think the book is wrong. But I don't know. That's why I left the other side intact, so I can take that shoe off, or that drum off, and double check that, and if I have to, I can swap it. But the brakes seem to work. The adjuster's in place. This spring was not in the kit, unfortunately, which annoys the hell out of me. But, you know, working with what I've got, hopefully that will be included with the the parking brake cable replacement, if I need to get one, because that spring wasn't included either. But otherwise, everything's in place. The rubber knockout for the adjuster included. I don't know if you can see it in there. Probably not. I don't know. But anyway, everything is in place and ready for the drum to go on. And it's a very, very tight fit even with the adjuster all the way in. So yeah, it definitely needed to be replaced because it was about halfway out. So yeah, I'll throw the drum on. And there we are. Drums are on, tires on. Well, one drum, got to do the passenger side still. Yeah. I actually like the way this looks. Even though red is the opposite color on the color wheel, which is supposed to make it more pretty or something. I don't know what the hell it's supposed to do. It's just the opposite color of blue anyway. You wouldn't really notice these walking by unless you just happen to look at the right angle. But I think they do add just that little bit of accent to the truck. For any of you guys that might be doing these 10-inch drum brakes on the Dodge pickups, this pin needs to be transferred from the old brake shoes to the new ones. You can hammer it in and out. I used a wrench to spread the load out so I wouldn't damage the surface as much. But yeah, you gotta transfer that pin because that's what the parking brake adjuster connects to, as well as the actual brake shoe adjuster mechanism, the tin part, that thing there mounts to. So you have to transfer that over just to keep it clear. And also, I did check before I took them apart. The spring does go in that upper hole, that smaller one above the big one. So the diagram is wrong, unless this was already done by somebody before. But considering the condition of the springs, I doubt it. This is the spring that came off of that side. That's bent and worn out and busted. So yeah, but that's what it looks like so far. Just wanted to let you guys know you got to transfer that pin. Well, there's that. So the back brakes are done, finally, at least as far as they're going to get, but judging by how much moisture it looks like there is on the leaf spring, I'm guessing my diff is leaking. So yeah, that'll probably get rebuilt next year, along with the front diff. I'll finally get the parts for that. And then after that it'll be drivetrain, but to finish out the year, I'm going to finish off the suspension. It's going to be bushings, shocks, ball joints, everything I think I need, or, well, probably might not need, but we'll be doing anyway, because, well, I want this thing to ride and handle a little bit better than it does. I'll also be fixing the frame on the other side, but there's what I need to do the front brakes. I'm not going to do anything fancy with them. I might do a couple of clips of me replacing the brake pads in the front, as well as the rotor that's in the box. But otherwise, yeah, that's the fancy new drums on the back of my truck, which are basically just painted stalkers. So there you go. Yet again, I am forced to deal with the old owner's complete apathy towards proper repairs. That is what a normal brake disc should look like, even on both sides. That's what this one looks like. Yeah, obviously it's been wearing a bit more on the inside than it should. But the brake pads are almost new. So I'm guessing whoever did it decided that it wasn't important to have the brakes functioning properly. They just wanted to be able to stop sometimes, or for a little while, or just, long enough to get the vehicle sold. So, yet again, I am having to deal with people not doing what they should. Okay, here's a tip for people who end up stuck on the side of the road and have to change a tire, or happen to be doing their brakes in their driveway and can't get a wheel off. It's not uncommon for a wheel to fuse to a hub when it's been on there a while and there's no weather protection or anti-seize of any kind. This one will not come off. I've beat on it with a dead blow and jerked on it. But there is another way that you can do, and I only recommend this in the worst case scenario when you have no other option, because you can cause a lot of damage to the threads on your lug nuts, or your lug bolts, whatever. Anyway, put 2 to 3 lug nuts on, loose. Enough to hold the tire on, enough that they're not going to go flying off, but not enough to actually hold the wheel against the hub. Then let your jack down. Sometimes the more violent the better. I have to put the camera down a minute. Okay. Once you have the wheel down, if it doesn't pop free on its own, which this one I think, yes it did. That was all it took to pop it free. But if you don't get it to pop free with just doing that, another thing you can do, brace against the car and rock it back and forth like this. I don't know if you can see it moving as opposed to me, but rocking it back and forth violently can get it to pop off of the hub, because you've got the entire weight of the car moving back and forth against the rust around the center here and then behind the hub, bonding the two together. That should give you enough leverage to pop it free. As long as your ball joints are in good shape, you shouldn't have to worry about the hub moving back and forth as you try to do that. It should go with the vehicle, and eventually the tires should pop free. But that's a little tip for you guys if you ever find yourself stuck like that. Well, yet again, they've replaced the pads without replacing the rotor. Try to find an angle where you can see those. Pads are still in good shape, but the rotor itself is shot. So, since I only ordered the one rotor because I only thought I heard metal on one side, I'm just going to leave this as it is, since these are new pads, and keep the other set of pads for when I get the new rotor, which will be probably sometime next week, and get this thing ready to go again. Yeah, this is one of the more annoying things that happens when working on a car. Apparently this tab needs to be inside, not sitting on the edge like it was. It was sitting over here, not in there where it should be. So it wasn't really moving. But anyway, now that that's the situation, I'm going to throw the wheel back on after I cover this shit with anti-seize so it doesn't lock the wheel on again, and order a new rotor. But as of right now, this brake job is as far as it's going to get. Next time it'll be replacing this rotor, replacing these pads, and bleeding all the brakes.